Hey Audio Fam, CJ here with Prodigy Creations, and today I'd like to discuss lessons we can learn from Andy Wallace. If you're not familiar with the name, Andy Wallace is a well-renowned Grammy-winning mixing engineer with over 40 years of experience in the music industry. So he's definitely been around a while, definitely got some good bits of wisdom for us. His mixing work includes albums such as Rubberneck by Toadies, Toxicity by System of a Down, Hybrid Theory by Linkin Park, Nevermind by Nirvana, and much more, but man, what a list in itself. Andy is an inspiration to many engineers, so today I'd like to discuss 4 lessons we can learn from him. Lesson number 1 from Andy is when beginning a mix, make quick and easy decisions. He says, I think that I'd have to say spending not too much time at the beginning of the mix is probably what pays off the most for me. I tend to set up my mix rather quickly at the beginning, painting in pretty broad strokes to achieve a basic sound that I'm looking for. I would then spend a little more time, mix a little more slowly, spending more time fine-tuning some of those aspects without trying to upset the general sound I got in the first place. Mixing quickly in the first stage of the mix, getting the basic sound of the mix usually in less than half an hour, and trying to stay to that sound seems to pay off for me. I like Andy's philosophy when it comes to this, about painting in pretty broad strokes. And to me that means whenever I'm diving into a mix for the first time, to me painting in broad strokes would mean only focusing on volume faders and maybe placement with panning. So, because I think sometimes as mixing engineers we can get too overwhelmed because really there is a lot that goes on in mixing. There's adjusting volume faders, there's applying EQ, there's compression, reverb, delay, limiting, the list goes on. So many things to be done in mixing. But I think having the mindset of when just getting into it, just starting, and just focusing on mixing 101, which is adjusting volume faders to find that balance between every track within the song so that they all blend together. And, if you need a little bit of extra space, then using panning to your advantage by placing something more to the left of the speaker, more to the right, whatever it may be. I think I especially liked what he had to say about getting the basic mix done in 30 minutes. Because since, learning from Andy, I've actually implemented this strategy into my mixes. I will literally pull up a timer on my computer or my phone for 30 minutes. I'll have it set. That way I know I only have that allotted time to get the basic mix done. And it's really beneficial, I'd say, because it helps you to make quicker and easier decisions. You're not spending too much time on one thing. You're focused on the mix as a whole rather than one individual track that you're working on. I think keeping it simple at the beginning is a very good strategy that Andy suggests us to do. And this follows into the second point of Andy Wallace, which is to save detailed mix work for the end. He says, I do spend a lot of time toward the end of the mix doing a lot of fine tuning and writing faders just to catch little things that make a difference. So Andy's workflow seems to be very step by step. And I like that because I think sometimes, again, we can get just too overwhelmed with all the things we have to do as a mixing engineer, all the different effects we have to apply, all the things, right? I'm definitely guilty of being in that mindset before, of just hopping into a mix and be like, okay, let's get everything done. I'm gonna EQ this, I'm gonna compress that, I'm gonna pan this over here, I'm gonna add this side chain. There is a lot to mixing, but I think Andy really reminds us that it's a process and to treat it as such. We shouldn't rush into everything at once, as tempting as that can be, because especially with computers, we can do a lot all at the same time and think we're getting a lot done, But really, it's good to have a process, a step-by-step process to let's get this done first, then move on to that. So yeah, just to recap, Andy says get a basic mix done in 30 minutes, and then we can move on to, fine-tuning some of those tracks, be it EQ, compression, whatever. And then towards the end of the mix, we can really start to get surgical, really dive into everything we've done. Once we feel like we've achieved a basic mix, a basic sound that we like, then you can get really surgical, dive into those EQs you applied, dive into the compressor you applied, and, just fine tune it. Get it just be perfect. Third piece of advice from Andy is to use dynamics to create depth. So before we go into his quote, what is dynamics? Dynamics means, so if you had a mix that was just flatline, in other words, it just stayed at this volume and that's all it did, that wouldn't be a very dynamic audio signal. So take, for example, vocals. Vocals are very dynamic. I can talk softly like this, but then all of a sudden I can go big and brash and woo, Dynamics is the difference between low parts and high parts, basically. And so using dynamics to create depth, what does Andy say? I believe that dynamics are really, really important. Most mixes I hear that are unexciting to me, that's usually one of the faults. Things are just too mashed together, which passes as kind of a sound at times, but to me just sounds uninteresting. It's kind of like watching a movie that's out of focus. Man, what a perfect description of a mix that doesn't have enough dynamics. It's like watching a movie that's out of focus. Perfect description, Because dynamics in music is what creates excitement. It's what creates moments. Whenever you have a moment in a song where a lot of the instruments drop out and then all of a sudden they come back, that would be considered dynamics, but there's more to dynamics than that. It could be as simple as adjusting your volume faders if you want to automate it, meaning that you can set it to turn down at a certain point. Let's say during the verse, towards the end of it, you bring, a guitar down for a little bit so that you can bring it back up on the chorus and it really pops. That's dynamics. And there are many ways you can utilize dynamics to your advantage, but just becoming familiar with what those are and how you can use it can really add good dimension and good character to your mix. So the fourth and final piece of advice from Andy Wallace, less is more. He says, I found over the years that I use less and less outboard gear for mixing. It seems the SSL can give me what I need. Now, before we dive into this, I know some are going to say, well, it's easy for him to say he has an SSL console. True, but I think the same principles apply for those of us who use computers or DAWs for mixing. Because really, these days you don't need an audio console. It's just awesome if you can have one, for sure. I know I would like one. But, most music today, I would say, is probably mixed in the box, meaning in the computer on a piece of audio software. So, just replace SSL with DAW and just replace outboard gear with plugins. And there you go. I think the same principles apply. I think we can definitely get too focused in on our plugin collection and using too many of them. And sometimes we forget that we have really all the tools we need within our DAW. And don't hear me wrong, I'm not knocking plugins whatsoever. I love plugins. I've covered a lot of plugins from Waves on this YouTube channel. I love them. But at the same time, they can become a distraction if we allow them to. Really, I think it's good to have the mindset of less is more. Lately, in the latest mix I've been working on, I haven't actually touched any third-party plugins because, I want to challenge myself as an engineer. And at the end of the day, I know that all I truly need is already within my software. And it makes it a lot simpler. One of the things I really appreciate about Andy, other than his amazing line of work, his mixing strategy is just really good. It's very logical. Just these 4 points we talked about, I feel flow really well into one another. And I think it's because, Andy's been doing it for 40 plus years, so he has a workflow. I also love that he's, very minimal in his approach. He doesn't go too crazy on outboard gear. He just sticks to what's in front of him and doesn't worry about anything else. Andy seems to have a very planned, step-by-step, yet slow and methodical approach to mixing. And I think we can learn a lot from him when it comes to this, because again, I can't speak for you, but I know I've definitely been guilty of, when hopping into a mix, just wanting to get it all done right off the bat. But mixing is step by step. It's a slow process, but it's worth spending the time to do, and to do well. That's all I've got for you today, friends. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you are brand new to music production, audio engineering, mixing, you want to take that first step of diving into it, but you don't really know where to start, I have a free gift for you, my friends. If you visit prodigycreationsnow.com, you will see a button on the website that says Get the Free Guide. Just go ahead and click that button. It's going to send you to a landing page for my ebook called The Simple Guide to Recording Music Now in 5 Steps or Less. And as the name says, it will walk you through step by step, just as Andy Wallace likes to do. The ebook will guide you step by step on the things you're going to need in order to begin this wonderful hobby of music production. Yeah, all you gotta do is enter in your email address and hit send, and within minutes, your inbox will get the free ebook provided by yours truly. As a disclaimer, it will add you to my email list, but you can always unsubscribe if you need to later in the future. No hard feelings. So go ahead and download that free gift from me to you. Thank you again so much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. It truly means a lot to me, and I hope to see you in the next one, friends.